Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you so much for coming online tonight. We've got an incredible speaker tonight. Master Shane, thank you so much for coming online. Truly, truly appreciate it. I'd like to hand it over to our host for tonight for our 3 sessions in English, Mandarin, and Cantonese, Mr. Peter Lam, our CSO from up in Hong Kong, China. Thank you, Peter Lam.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, everyone. I would like to introduce this young man that I truly respect, and I'm going to start with his background. Shane has his Master of Science in Nutrition from Chinese University of Hong Kong, and in the past, actually, his thesis was actually on dietary management of Alzheimer's disease with fish oil. In the past 12 years, Shane has been working in the wellness industry, and in the past 6 years, he has been working as an interpreter. He holds a certificate of medical interpreting from Guangdong University of Foreign Studies. There is a very interesting thing about Shane. His standards on choosing the right food and supplement are the highest among all the people I've ever seen in my life. But there's one thing in common to me, and I believe to most of you here tonight. He found that the Cincino product and concept perfectly meet his standard. So tonight, it is a valuable 30 minutes for you to learn the actionable tips on how to use the Cincino products to improve your health, starting with proper absorption. So let's welcome Shane. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. Let me load up my presentation. Okay. So before we start, please spend some time reading the disclaimer. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So welcome again, welcome back to season 4 of Cincino Basics. Tonight we're going to talk about quantum nutrition for optimal absorption and detox. So here's a rundown of what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to talk about what makes our body, how does absorption take place, what does the cell membrane do, membrane fluidity, strategies to improve nutrient absorption, maximizing absorption of omega-3s, and then finally some evidence and recommendations. So before we start, I would like to ask you a question. How many of you agree that you are what you eat? Please raise your hand if you agree, or you can type 1 in the chat box for agree, or if you disagree, you can type 2. I'll give you a few seconds to do that, to respond. Very interesting. So we've got both 1s and 2s. Okay. It looks like a 50-50. Okay, so no, you are not what you eat. You're not what you eat, but you're actually what your body absorbs, because not everything you eat becomes part of your body. And that's what number 1 and number 2 are for. So have you heard of pica? It has nothing to do with Pikachu. Pica is actually a disorder where people eat unusual objects. So what are these unusual objects? For example, the most common ones are dirt, soil, and even flaking paint. This one was quite surprising for me as well. And there's more. Hair. Okay, so this lady ate hair. Did she become beast? Well, she ate hair. She didn't grow more hair. What about this guy on YouTube? He was eating metal nails. Did he become Magneto? No, he did not, even though he was eating metals. So, well, it just tells us that we are not what we eat. And like I said, what we absorb. We're not what we eat, and that's very important for tonight's today's topic, because we're going to talk about optimal absorption and detox. Okay. So what exactly do we mean by optimal absorption and detox? Basically, it means letting our body take as much of the nutrients that we eat that our body actually needs and getting rid of the wastes that it doesn't. Okay, so before we start, let's start with absorption. Let's take a little journey of the food or nutrients that we take and through the digestive tract. So we see a diagram here. We see a diagram of our digestive tract. So when you eat food, you chew it and then you swallow it. It goes down your esophagus to your stomach, where there's more churning and there's some physical, mechanical, and chemical digestion happening there. And then it will go to your small intestine, where some of your digestive enzymes will work on the food particles and further breaking them down, and then they will be absorbed into, in your small intestine into your bloodstream, and finally reaching the cells. The end points here are your cells, and this is very important. Why? Because your cells are the basic living units. They are the basic living units of any organisms. And how do nutrients enter cells? They enter cells through the membrane, and this is a membrane here. And what does a cell membrane do? Okay, first of all, well, it has many different functions. The first is it's like a fortress. It's like the wall of a fortress. It provides structure and protection. And it's also like an antenna. It communicates with the outside world being the extracellular space. It can receive and send signals. They could be biochemical signals like hormones. They could also be electrical signals like impulses in the neurons. Sorry, I'm getting used to this new mouse. Okay, and like in a castle, you can mount a flag. Your cell membrane can also mount a flag. And what kind of flag? It actually signals to your immune cells whether this particular cell is a self or a non-self. Because if it's non-self, your immune cells will start attacking it. And also, it also acts as a gate into or out of the castle, because your membrane, your cell membrane is selectively permeable. It controls what goes in and what comes out of the cells. Okay, so now that we have a basic understanding of the functions of your cell membrane, now we know that when you have a healthy cell membrane, it can protect what's inside the cells. And now there's a very important implication. When it is healthy, there's also healthy movement in and out of the cells. And that means the cell itself will be healthy. And that's also the most important factor in your nutritional status. Why? You see these particles here. They could be nutrients for your cells, and they could also be waste products that need to be eliminated from the cells. Okay, so let's have a look here. We have unhealthy cell and a healthy cell. I'm sure you've heard this before. A healthy cell is able to absorb nutrients and eliminate wastes rather freely, whereas an unhealthy cell has problems with it. Which is why I said it's the most important factor in determining your nutritional status. And why is that? Okay, suppose you have normal stomach acid levels and you have normal digestive enzyme levels, and they're doing their jobs, they're breaking down foods into smaller compounds, and then what in your small intestine, and you have healthy gut bacteria, so they also help breaking these food particles down, and finally they get absorbed into the bloodstream. Then what? Let's consider this analogy here. Suppose you have a fishing net and you are just standing by a river and you are watching this the fish in the river swimming by. Well, if you're just watching them, they're just part of the landscape. What does that mean? The fish needs to get into your net. By the same token, nutrients need to get into the cells, because if the nutrients are not in your cells, well, they're just in the bloodstream, and they're not going to do anything for you. When people talk about nutrition these days, they often talk about bioavailability. What it means is that the food that we eat can be broken down and absorbed and finally reach the bloodstream. And then people assume that, well, these food particles or these nutrients will be available for our use. But my friends, this assumption is, after all, just an assumption, because we know this is not true. It's not reality. Why is that? Well, we know that nutrients can stay in the river forever if your net is faulty. Let's look at this example here. We'll consider diabetes. Diabetes is a condition where you have excessive amounts of sugar in your blood. Well, you can think of them as the fish. Well, you have a lot of fish in the river, but then they don't get into your net because you have a faulty net. So in this case, your cells have stopped responding to the signals that your body sends them. So they're not picking up the sugars, the blood sugars. And in this case, we call that insulin resistance. And this is diabetes. So once again, it shows that it doesn't really matter what you have in your bloodstream. What's important is you need to get these nutrients into your cells. And like we said earlier, the most important factor is the cell membrane, because they need to get into your cells through the cell membrane. Okay, so now we have a question. How do we improve functions of the cell membrane so we can have better nutrition and better elimination on a cellular level? We see again a cell membrane here, and we see these proteins on the cell membranes. The answer is membrane fluidity. I'm sure you've heard this before. So in a nutshell, a membrane that is fluid is more flexible. It allows nutrients and waste products to move in and out of the cells rather freely. So the more fluid a membrane is, the easier it is for these compounds to enter or leave the cells. So what makes a membrane fluid or rigid? Let's look at these pictures here. So on the left, we have fluid. We'll have a fluid membrane, and on the right, we have a rigid one. So it depends on the composition of the membrane. So what makes up the membrane? Fatty acids, of course, because we have what we call the phospholipid bilayers here, and they are primarily lipids, fatty acids in the middle. So let's look at the one on the right. It's primarily, so all the fatty acids you see here are actually saturated fatty acids, which means they don't have any double bonds, and they have a straight chain in structure. So since they're straight, they can be more easily packed together. And when they come closer with each other, they will also form connections with each other, making them even more closely packed together. And on the left, we have unsaturated fatty acids. And we know unsaturated fatty acids have double bonds. They could have one, like monounsaturated fatty acid, or more, like polyunsaturated fatty acids. And they have kinks and bends, which kind of distort the structure. So as you can see, they are not straight. And since they're not straight, it is not possible to pack them tightly together, which means a membrane composed of unsaturated fatty acids are more fluid because there's more space. So the more unsaturated fatty acids you have in a membrane, the more fluid it will be, which also means the better absorption and better elimination it will have. Okay, so if your membrane is healthy, it should have a right balance between rigidity and fluidity. We don't want it to be so fluid that it can't hold itself together, because if you remember, it has this function of giving structure to a cell and protecting what's inside. And we also don't want it to be too rigid, because we want nutrients to be relatively, to be flowing relatively easily in and out of the cell. So that is an index of how healthy a membrane is. But you might be asking, well, how do I know if my membrane is healthy? Well, there's something you can do. You can do the balance test. The balance test will give you your cell membrane fluidity index, and you should be aiming at getting a number below 4 to 1. So it's a very fast, very quick test. It doesn't take long, maybe a few minutes. And you prick your finger, and then you put a few drops on the test paper, and then that's it. You send it to our lab in Norway, and then within 2 weeks, you'll get your results and your report. Then you will know how healthy the cell membrane of your red blood cells will be. Okay, so if your cell membranes are healthy, well then, like I said, there should be free movement through in and out of the membranes. And how do they move in and out? If they are smaller particles like oxygen, they can diffuse rather freely through the membrane itself. If they are larger, or if they carry a charge, a positive or a negative charge, they will need some help. For example, we have carrier proteins on the membrane. They can transport, for example, glucose or some other charged particles like sodium ions in and out of the cell. Okay, so now I would like to ask you a question. Does anyone know what can modify these channel proteins so we get better absorption? Take a guess. You can type it in the chat box. It shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, I'll tell you. It's DHA and EPA. So DHA and EPA can actually signal the genes of your cells to change the proteins on the cell membrane, or they can produce more of the proteins that you need. Okay, so think about it this way. If you have more carrier proteins on the membrane, it's like having more robotic arms on the assembly line. Well, if you have more arms, then there will be faster uptake. And that's also the reason why taking DHA and EPA can actually improve your glucose response. The glucose response means that after you eat, after a meal, your blood glucose level actually rises. But if you have a good glucose response, your cells will be so efficient at clearing up blood sugars from the bloodstream without raising the level too drastically. Okay, so next, let's talk about how we can how we can enhance absorption of nutrients. There are a few levels that I'll be talking about. We can talk about it on a food level, on a digestion level, on the gut level, and also on the membrane level. So let's start with food. Okay, on food level, did you know that you can actually pair different foods in a meal to enhance the absorption? For example, we know that heme iron from animal sources are better absorbed by our body. But what about people who are vegetarian or vegan? They don't eat any animal products. Well, they can still get iron from plant sources like spinach, beetroot, or kale, but then the absorption rate will be much lower, or the bioavailability will be lower. But then, did you know that if you eat these plants or vegetables with vitamin C, it can greatly enhance the absorption. So next time when you have a spinach, a beetroot, or a kale salad, you know, instead of using vinegar, use fresh lemon juice or fresh lime juice, and that can increase the absorption for you. Also, we know that lycopene, the polyphenol in tomatoes, primarily in its skin, is only reasonably absorbed by the body when you cook it in oil, or if you want to eat it raw, you have to eat it with olive oil. And then there's also curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric. It has very low bioavailability, but if you pair it with black pepper, it can greatly enhance its absorption. And also calcium. Calcium isn't normally absorbed that well, especially for people who are older. But if you have it with vitamin D, the absorption rate will greatly improve as well. So, if you have been following us for a while, you'll realize that we like to work with Mother Nature. We like to give you natural food. So the supplements we give you come from whole food, come from natural sources, because we believe that nutrients work best when they work in harmony with each other. So if we go back to the last slide, you know, these synergistic effects, you will realize that lycopene, which is present in extent, and we have olive oil, and then there's also curcumin and black pepper. Did you know that both ingredients are in xenogene? And then also calcium. Calcium is in extent, and then we have vitamin D in extent, as well as our balance oil. So you see, this is the reason why the health protocol works so well. It's also why we keep hearing so many great results from people who are on the health protocol, because we are mimicking how nature wants us to eat, because we're eating all these natural foods together, you know, in a way that complement each other, complement their absorption, complement their use, and complement their bioavailability. So this is the first way you can increase the absorption of food, because they work so well together. Okay, so like I said, extent, we have the phytonutrients and the fat-soluble vitamins. But if you have it with olive oil or the premium balanced oil, then the absorption will be greatly enhanced. Okay, on the second level is digestion. You have to improve your digestion. There are people who have problems. For example, they have a low stomach acid level, or because they have irritable bowel syndrome, or they have inflammatory bowel syndrome, or they have diabetes, or they are taking medications like proton pump inhibitors to help them with chronic acid reflux or some infection. These people, they generally don't have enough digestive enzymes. So what can we do? We can supplement with enzyme-rich foods, for example, raw honey, mango, papaya, and avocado. These are really rich in enzymes, and they can help your digestion. And you know what I'm thinking about? You can actually make use of those ingredients and make an enzyme-rich salsa and use Rivu together with olive oil, together with lime juice or lemon juice to make a salad or a salsa. Okay, on the gut level, well, you have to improve your gut bacteria. You can take probiotics. The best ones come from the blue zones, the longevity zones, but more importantly, you need to take prebiotics because you need to give these bacteria nutrition. You have to feed them, you have to keep them alive. And the best ones we have is the xenobiotic because it consists of 8 different blends. And as you can see, there are different bacteria living in different parts of your gut, and they require different nutrition. So you need a blend that can take care of the whole length of your gut. And this really is a very smart, very wise formula that actually takes care of the whole length of your gut. And we've been hearing lots of good, great results from people who use it, who eat it. Okay, and then membrane function, which is actually the most important part. Like I talked earlier, DHA and EPA, which are polyunsaturated fatty acids, improve membrane function. They improve the fluidity, and they can allow nutrients to move in and out more readily. So now the question is, how do we maximize absorption of omega-3 fatty acids? First of all, you have to pick a good form. Triglyceride is a form that is more available to our body. So all the omega-3 products of Zinzino, well, they're produced by Lissy, and according to their website, they all come in the triglyceride form. And according to this study, triglyceride, well, 68% of it is absorbed by our body. But if you buy, I mean, compared with some cheaper formulas on the market using ethyl ester, the absorption rate is only 20%. Okay, and you have to pick a form that suits your needs. You can use capsules for your convenience, but we believe in personalization as well. So, you know, the omega-3 index is calculated using your red blood cells. And if you weigh more, if you are stronger, well, then you probably have more blood. In that case, you will have more red blood cells to feed, which is why we calculate your personalized dosage using your weight. And absorption is greatly enhanced when you take it with fat. Olive oil is a very good fat. And if you take fish oil, and if you take it with olive oil, then it will be even greater for you. And now you don't have to worry about taking fish oil and olive oil separately because they're both in the same formula in the different balance oils that we have. So they guarantee to have better absorption. Okay, and finally, a very important factor is you have to make sure that the product you're taking is stable, because oil is susceptible to oxidation, heat, oxygen, and sunlight. And olive polyphenols are perfect. They are very, very good at preserving the stability and the freshness of omega-3 fatty acids. So if you like olive oil, like us, you will enjoy Revu and Zizino Balance Oil Premium, because we use this special cultivar, olive cultivar called Koroneiki from Greece and Crete. And it has been described as having a balanced taste and health effects. And the antioxidant level in Revu and Balance Oil Plus Premium is actually 30 times ordinary olive oil you find in a supermarket. Okay, let's have a look at the antioxidant levels. So I would like you to look at the third one from the right. This is Koroneiki, and I would like you to look at the dark red bar. That refers to the antioxidant level of the black fruits. You see, it really is the highest. The only one that can rival Koroneiki is Conservolia, and it's known to be really bitter, which is why usually the farmers put them through a debittering process, which actually lowers the antioxidant level in the end. So Koroneiki really is the best for making olive oil. Okay, but then we see that there are actually discrepancies between different omega-3 trials. Some studies show that, okay, omega-3 actually is beneficial for you, but some is not. So why is there a discrepancy? For example, in the women's health study in the States, they concluded there's no benefit, but in Italy there is. Well, some scientists have noticed that in Italy, they eat a lot of olive, and the olive polyphenols actually help preserve the freshness and the antioxidant capacity of fish oil or algal oil, making them more potent. And that could explain why there's a discrepancy between an American study and an Italian study. Here we see that olive oil is actually very effective at inhibiting oxidation of omega-3 fatty acids. Here we're comparing it with a commercial preservative, and after 8 days, it's still the oxidation products are still relatively low. And here we're comparing it with commercial preservatives as well as other natural preservatives like oregano. So you see the one on the right is actually oxidation products from omega-3 fatty acids. Only olive and oregano have 100% inhibition, but olive actually outperformed oregano in these omega-6 fatty acids oxidation products as well. So olive polyphenol is more well-rounded. Okay, what about algal oil, which we find in our vegan formula? So if you look at the graph here, the black circles and the black triangles are actually a mixture of algal oil with olive oil. And you see over a period of 10 weeks, the level of omega-3 fatty acids stay normal, stay constant. But if you look at the white circle, which is pure algal oil, you can see that the level or the amount of omega-3 acid actually declined gradually, because it doesn't have the protection from olive polyphenols, which shows that olive polyphenol is really, really powerful. earlier we said that the most important, whatever there is in the bloodstream does not matter because it needs to get into your membrane, get inside your cells through the membrane. So if the membrane is healthy, it can allow nutrients to enter. An oxidized membrane is actually an unhealthy membrane. So even though some DHA or EPA could be incorporated into the membrane, they are still susceptible to oxidation. So here we see that olive extract can actually protect the DHA and the EPA as part of a membrane. As you can see, well, AA, the control here is ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. So it performs as well as vitamin C in scavenging free radicals. So it protects our red blood cell membrane from the damage of oxidation. It's very important because we know that red blood cells carry nutrients throughout our body, so they need to be healthy and active. Okay, now we see another picture. A here is control, so they're healthy red blood cells. B, you see, they have lost their shape because the membranes are oxidized and they clump together. And we know that the surface area of a red blood cell is very important because the more surface area it has, the more oxygen and nutrients it can carry. But when they clump together, the surface area is greatly reduced. But if you use olive extract, olive polyphenol, we can greatly preserve the integrity of the membrane of red blood cells. So you see they are quite healthy because of olive polyphenol. And finally, another way of improving absorption is through the use of emulsifier. So here we have the AquaX. AquaX actually in its formula has an emulsifier. So we know that water and oil don't mix together. And when it goes through the stomach, through the churning, the oil will be broken down into smaller droplets. And then the emulsifier can take effect. They can further facilitate the formation of micro droplets. It's basically like washing up liquid. When these emulsified droplets are formed, then water and oil can then mix together. So we see this study here. AquaCell is the emulsifier in the AquaX formula. When you use this formula, when you use AquaCell, we see that there is a 7 times increase in absorption of the omega-3 fatty acids. There is another study using a similar technology, another emulsifier, and they show that when you take a higher dose, the absorption can actually increase when you use an emulsifier, meaning, so we see that in a lower dose, the absorption was only 6 times as high, but then in a higher dose, similar to the dose in AquaX, the absorption was 9.6 times. And we see that omega-3 fatty acids can actually be taken up into our cells rather rapidly. In this study, we see 0 weeks and then 4 and then 8. So they supplemented fish oil or omega-3 for 8 weeks. And this is a washout period where they don't take the supplement. And we see that within days, the omega-3 in your red blood cell membrane increased rapidly. And we see EPA on the left and DHA on the right. EPA rose more rapidly and DHA more gradually. But then when you stop taking the supplement, EPA also dropped more rapidly and DHA also more gradually. Okay, what better way to prove the effectiveness of absorption, then using the omega-3 index, which is in our balance test. So if you look at the graphs here, without emulsification, the omega-3 index only reached 6.4 or 7.2, depending on EPA or DHA. But with emulsification, if you look at the graph here, it's much well, the magnitude is much larger, and it's also a more rapid increase. It reached 7 and 9 as well. 9 is actually it actually reaches the standard that we're looking at. We want 8. So now we know that when you improve absorption of omega-3 fatty acids, you can improve the membrane fluidity. And here we have another study testing the fluidity of red blood cell membranes. You see, when you're supplementing for 42 days, the fluidity increased greatly. But when you stop taking fish oils, it actually dropped rather gradually as well. Well, it shows that you need to continue taking if you want to continue enjoying good health, because we know that red blood cells turn over in 120 days. So now we saw cell membrane. Let's also look at mitochondrial membrane. We know that mitochondria are the powerhouses in a cell because they can produce energy, and they're constantly burning fuels, for example, glucose, to create energy, ATP for us. And in this process, they create a lot of free radicals and waste products. So the mitochondrial membrane needs to be very fluid, so nutrients can enter and waste products can come out. And in this study, we see that over a period of 12 months of supplementing with fish oil or olive oil, they actually both increase the membrane fluidity, actually double the fluidity. So they're using fish oil or olive oil separately, but if this test had been, if they had used a mixture of both, I'm sure the results would have been even more exciting, because we have seen so many studies showing the synergistic effects of these two nutrients together. Okay, so based on these studies, now I would like to give some recommendations. I would recommend AquaX to people, for example, who have these conditions. Fat digestion is rather difficult for them. Fat's not properly digested in their body because they might have stomach issues, they might have low enzyme levels, and they have problem with bile secretion, or they have liver disease, or they have their gallbladder removed. Or they might have some gut issues. Or maybe they simply just don't like fish and they want to mix the fish oil with juice and water, or they want faster results and higher doses. So I would like to cover some commonly asked questions. I get asked a lot, people say, oh, I eat a lot of fish. Does that mean I don't need to take supplements? Well, if you have access to fish caught in a pristine environment far away from human pollution, then maybe yes, but I would still highly recommend that you get yourself tested to make sure that the fish you're eating is giving you the results that you want. But I know most people don't have access or the luxury of wild, unpolluted fish. Then supplementation becomes all the more important. But the reality is a lot of people actually overestimate their own consumption of fish. Many people think they eat a lot more fish than they need. But if we look at this study showing average omega-3 level in Australians, actually they only have 100, the mean value is only 106 or 56 mg per day, and the median is actually even more appalling, just 15 and 8 DHA and EPA. That means, well, if we use the same formula in balanced soil, a 60 kilogram adult needs 1,474 mg a day, which means if we use the median here, half of the Australians are actually 98.5% omega-3 short for them to enjoy optimum nutrition. So they are, well, their level is far, far, far below what they actually need. Another question I get asked a lot is, I'm vegan, I eat flax seeds every day, do I still need to take supplements? Well, these data here will answer your questions. So if you take 2.1 grams of fish oil for 8 weeks, your EPA fish oil or an algal oil actually, your EPA increased by 300% and DHA 43%. But if you take 1 gram of flax seeds every day, your EPA only increased by 0.1% and DHA only 0.03%. That is minimal. I mean, you hardly increased your omega-3 index. So I'm sure now you understand why you still need to take a supplement if you're eating flax seeds every day. So my suggestion is everybody should take fish oil or algal oil because everybody can benefit from it, even fish eaters. Let's look at this data here. So people who only eat fish, they have this level 300, they have about 300 units of omega-3 in their body. But if they eat fish and they supplement, the number is double. So everybody can benefit from taking fish oil supplements or algal oil supplements. So let's recap what we have covered tonight before we wrap up. We talked about what we are. So we're not what we eat, we are what we absorb. And we talked about the absorption process in our body. We talked about the functions of our membrane. We talked about how fluidity can improve absorption. We also talked about different strategies to improve absorption. For example, by pairing different foods together, and how we can maximize omega-3 absorption. And I gave you some evidence of the effectiveness of omega-3 and olive polyphenols, and I gave some recommendations based on the studies. So you might want to take aqua eggs, you might want to take balanced oil premium, or you can take a combination of aqua X plus Revu if you want to up your game. So my conclusion is everybody needs supplementation. And next week, we're going to talk about cellular renewal and how it can help you look more youthful and have more vitality. And that's the end of my presentation for tonight. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Master Shane. Absolutely outstanding presentation. And again, you just blow me away with the science and the way you put everything together. It makes it, truly understandable. Guys, make sure you get this information on a shared platform. Get it out to as many people as possible. Let them understand. Now, don't forget, right now, up until the 15th of September, 2021, I need to put a timestamp because these type of recordings stay around for years and years. So up until the 15th of September, 2021, for every Premier kit, for every major kit within every customer kit within Zenzino until the 15th of September, you get one of our key super premium products, okay? This is at great value. 72 euro dollars, okay? 81 Australian dollars, about 500 Hong Kong dollars. Guys, it is great value. Make sure you get online. So every time you purchase a Premier kit, for those people that are over in our Philippines region that are building, guys, and I know there's a lot of Philippines watching right now, you buy one of your mini customer kits and you get one of these free. Guys, sensational opportunity. Let's go out and make Zenzino huge. Let's go out and tell the world. But in exactly 10 minutes, jump back on if you're Mandarin speaking or you know people that speak Chinese Mandarin. Please jump on the same Zoom link, and we look forward to seeing you there again. Take care, guys. And again, Master Shane, thank you for this incredible session, and we look forward to seeing you next week as we repeat the shows again. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. God bless, and have a fantastic evening.